31 now. It takes me 3 years to write a book. I'll be like 60 years old by the time I'm done this series. So I am currently drafting a winter-themed story set in New-Camelot, my high fantasy world, the setting of the Sun and Moon Saga. 2 days ago, I wrote about 600 words, and then this morning I wrote about 1,400 words. It's currently sitting at 2,023 words, so I've made a lot of progress. I've been writing for 3 or 4 hours now. I've been writing very slowly. Something that I'm realizing the more and more I write is that just because I've written a lot of words, it doesn't mean that I've written the right words. I mean, I can write very, very quickly. If I have an outline or if I have a clear vision of where the story is going to go, I can easily draft 1,000 or 2,000 words in an hour. And that is powerful. That's a powerful skill to have, because if I do know where the story's going and it's just a matter of getting the words down, that is brilliant because it means I can draft something very, very quickly. But if I don't yet know where the story is going to go, if there's things that I need to figure out, or if there's things that I want to experiment with or explore, if there's world building I want to do, or if I want to dive deeper into one of the characters, something like that, it's not necessarily a good thing that I can write so quickly, because sometimes I really need to slow down and like really figure everything out before I just frantically type words. So both of the sessions that I've had towards this current project, this short story, I have been very intentional with my writing, and I have forced myself to slow down and really think deeply about the story that I'm crafting. I think that when I was newer to writing, it was important to just word vomit everything out, because when you're new to writing, it's easy to let perfectionism, which is just procrastination in disguise, it's easy to let perfectionism paralyze you and stop you from ever writing anything. So I think when I was newer to writing, it was important that I just word vomited out my books, even if it meant that I had to do, in the case of Aurora and Luna, 5 rounds of revision, 5 rounds of going and changing the actual story. But now that I have more experience, now that I've written several books, now that I've published, I think the next step in my journey is actually to slow down and be more intentional with my writing process. Of course, there's going to be days where I feel blocked. I'm putting that in quotations because I don't actually believe in writer's block. I think we often externalize writer's block and make it seem like it's some demon out there that's plaguing us and zapping our creative energy, but really writer's block is just, at least so often, it's just that perfectionism thing. It's wanting to make something and placing like a great deal of importance on that idea, like having an idea that you're really, really into, really, really inspired by, and putting a lot of importance on it, and then because it's so important to you, not letting yourself go through the messy process of creating the thing because you're afraid, even if it's just subconsciously, you're afraid that it won't be as perfect as it was in your mind. I think often that's what writer's block actually is. Now, of course, there might be issues with the story as well that you have to kind of go and figure out. But I really think that the writer's block that we so often talk about, that we so often complain about. It's the fear of it not being perfect. It's the fear of the process being messy. It's the fear of going and figuring it out. That's my belief anyway. Where was I going with this? Right, so I'm a human, so there's still going to be days where I feel writer's block. There's still going to be days where I feel resistance. And honestly, I do feel resistance to some extent every time I sit down at my computer to write. Even though writer's block isn't really something I struggle with on the regular, I'm still a human being, and it's still sometimes, it's so weird because sitting down to write is hard. There's a lot of resistance that comes up. Like, I would rather be reading or playing video games or hanging out with my boyfriend. But once I'm writing, usually it just starts flowing. But when I first started, it didn't always flow. And actually, most of the time it didn't flow. And that's why I think in the beginning it is important to force it. But I've been writing my whole life, but I've been writing seriously. I feel funny saying seriously, especially considering the kinds of things that I write, fantasy and fairy tales. But I've been taking my writing seriously since 2017. Well, no. I've been taking it seriously since the very, very end of 2019. That's when I started writing every day, no matter how inspired I felt. If I felt inspired, awesome. If I didn't, too bad. I had to force it and write anyway. That was a habit that I started building then. But in 2017, I really found my passion for writing. I had been writing on and off since I was a little kid. Storytelling has just always been a part of who I am, and it's always been something that I love to do. And that's taken many forms throughout the years, from music to books to art. I've even made video games, actually, like nothing major, but I've just made little pet projects. I used to make video games back when I was a teenager, just for fun. But in 2015, I came up with, really I feel like I received the idea for the Sun and Moon Saga. But that's a whole other can of worms that maybe I'll get into in another video. But yes, in 2015, the idea for the Sun and Moon Saga and new-camelot came to me. But I didn't let myself really work on it until 2017. Basically, I was taking creative writing as an elective in college when I was studying psychology. And my teacher basically told me not to write this fantasy story. She didn't grade me very well on what I had turned in. So I wrote things that I thought she would like, and I got better grades. But all the pieces that I wrote that I got decent grades on, I hated. And the pieces that I got terrible grades on, I loved. So that was confusing. So that's why there's that 2-year gap between 2015 and 2017, because in that time I wanted to start writing the Sun and Moon Saga, and I wanted to start building new-camelot. I would be daydreaming about it very frequently, but I was too afraid to take the leap. But in 2017, I was so depressed. Building this fantasy world and telling this fantasy story seemed like the only thing that would bring me joy. And that's when I really found my passion for writing, during 2017 and 2018. I wrote a lot in 2017 and 2018, and I was also recording a lot of music, performing a lot, just doing a lot of different creative things. But my energy was still, much of the time, very scattered. There was like a 2 or 3 month period where I locked myself up in my bedroom and wrote over 100,000 words towards Aurora and Luna, and that's when I finished the first draft of Aurora and Luna. But much of my energy during 2017 and 2018 was very scattered. There was so many projects that I was working on, too many projects. I really should have narrowed it down to just music and writing, but I wanted to try all these things. And then in 2019, that was a very different year, because that was the year that I decided to become an adult. I got a job, which I hadn't had a job in a long time. I was just living with my parents before that. making art, which is a very privileged thing to have been able to do. And I'm really grateful for that time in my life. But in 2019, I started working full time. I was saving money to go to hair school. And I just did not feel very good that whole year because I knew I wanted to do something creative. I knew I wanted to have a creative career, but there was now so much less time to be creative in. And in that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to focus on because I had had all kinds of projects, not just writing and music, which is already a lot, but writing, music, running an Etsy shop, having a YouTube channel that I posted weekly on. Those videos have all been deleted, by the way. Running a blog. Oh God, what else? There were so many different creative projects that I was working on. And now that I had much less time because I was now working, I didn't know where to focus when I had free time. Should I be making music? Should I be working on my novel? Should I be, what should I be doing? By the end of 2019, I realized that I wanted to focus on writing. So that's why I say, even though I sort of found my passion for writing earlier on, I didn't really take it seriously until the very end of 2019. And then 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, these last 5 years, I've been writing almost every single day. Now, I haven't been perfect with that. There's been a few times where I've fallen off from that habit for a few days or a few weeks. And honestly, those have been dark times. My daily writing habit grounds me. It's like a spiritual practice. This year, I have been really, really good about my daily writing habit. Probably better than I've been in these last 5 years. I mean, generally, I've been very good at writing every day, but this year, I've been really, really, really good at it. This habit is like nailed down now. You know, I will sometimes allow myself a day off here and there, maybe once every week or so, because I'm a human and honestly, sometimes the well runs dry, and when the well runs dry, what I really need is to sit down in my easy chair and read a book. I need to go for a hike, breathe in some fresh air, touch some moss, listen to some good music. So there's lots of different ways that I like to take a break, and I think rest is healthy. And I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit here. But essentially, I've been very good with this writing habit, and I think now, 5 years into this journey of writing damn near every day, this journey of treating writing as though it's my job, as though it's my career, because I mean, hey, this is my career, or at least it's what I would like to have a career in. That's what I'm working towards. 5 years in, I need to slow down. And I mean that both just slow down while I'm actually writing, write a little bit slower, write a little bit more intentionally, make space in that process to listen to my intuition. But also, I just need to slow down my life. Moved to the kitchen because I'm going to take some tea. Now, I was drinking chai tea lattes as I was doing my writing because that is my favorite morning beverage this time of year. But now I need something that is low or no caffeine. So I've got some rooibos tea here. I'm just gonna let it steep before I pour it. I want to continue the chat I was just having because yeah, I think right now the next phase in my writing journey is to write a little more slowly. And that means drafting a little bit less during certain writing sessions because I am being more intentional about how I craft the story, and I'm actually writing from the heart and writing from the soul rather than writing from the mind and writing from a place of just trying to get things done. I create my best work when I'm writing from my heart and soul, not from my mind. I don't create my best work when I'm trying to just get things done. There was a time in my journey when I needed to learn how to get things done, because there was a time in my journey where, as I highlighted earlier, I struggled with focus. I wanted to do 12 different things at once. So yeah, there was a time when I needed to just sit down and just focus on my writing in this very strict, dogmatic way. But now what I need is to be a little bit more of an artist with it again. I need to get really in touch with my heart, my soul. I need to get in touch with my source motivation for writing at all. And likewise, in the big picture, I just need to live slower. I can't live in this fast pace mode anymore. I can't live in this hustle culture mode anymore. I have been living there for so long, and it has just zapped my creative energy. As I said, I don't think it was all bad though. It just gets to a point. I feel like if you struggle with focus and you're new to something and you've got a lot of fear and procrastination and perfectionism, then it is really important to just push through. But if you have learned how to push through and now you're pushing through too much because that's become a more comfortable place for you to be, and you're almost using that as a crutch, then I think it's important to learn to slow down a little bit. I don't really think one way of being is superior to the others. There's pros and cons to being in that very masculine place of hustle and grind and working hard and pushing through. There's pros and cons. It's good and bad. I mean, it's neither good or bad. It just is. And sometimes you need to do that. Like when I'm finishing a book and I'm on a deadline, sometimes I have to go into that place. But then, on the other hand, the more feminine way of being, the more creative, flowing, listening to your emotions, listening to your heart and your soul, the more spiritual way of being, that also has its pros and cons, because I mean, sometimes you need that. Sometimes that is the antidote to some of the problems that arise from the masculine mode, from some of the sickness that arises from being in that masculine mode too much. It will literally make you sick. But then on the other hand, if you're in that feminine mode too often, then it's easy to not write. It's easy to not create. It's easy to not work. So I think it's this, you don't really want to fall too far on one side of the spectrum. You kind of want to take the middle path. That's what I'm learning anyways. And I say that's what I'm learning as though I didn't already know that 10 years ago when I found my Wiccan faith, because I mean that's literally written in the faith that there's masculine and feminine forces, the sun and the moon, and that neither are superior or inferior to one another. They are equal and they're both necessary. That was a little bit of a spiritual ramble, but there'll probably be a lot of those on this channel going forward. When I say I want to live more slowly, what I mean is that I'm just so done with hustle culture, and I guess I should have this on a trivet or something. This coaster will do. I would say that I'm done with capitalism, but I'm not, because I'm still living in a capitalist society, so I still have to monetize my work if I want to be able to fund my work. So, you know, I'm still very much trying to create a business out of writing. Full transparency there. However, I'm no longer delaying my joy and my bliss and my fulfillment because I haven't yet been able to monetize my writing. And let me explain, because honestly, this might sound a little bit nonsensical, frankly, but this is how I've been living these last 5 years. These last 5 years, I've very much been in this mode where, because at the end of 2019, I decided that I'm going to focus on writing. I want to have a creative career. I'm choosing writing, and I'm going to focus, and I'm going to grind it out until it happens. And I started to do that. I started to live in that way, in that masculine space. Now, 5 years later, I still haven't I guess I have monetized my writing because I have started to make some money off of my writing. Not enough to quit my day job, not enough to write full time, but I have made some money, and so that has been really nice, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for everyone who has purchased a copy of The Misfit Princess and The Rebel Coven, because literally that means the world to me. When people buy my writing and read my writing and leave me a review or interact with my work in some way, nothing makes my heart sing like that. I mean, other than maybe the creative process itself, because that process is also very fulfilling. And I'm going to get into that, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I've basically been in this mode where I've been telling myself that I need to be a full-time writer to be happy, and that I need to do that to self-actualize. And it's not that this is necessarily wrong or that there's no truth to this. I do think to live my best life, I probably do need to write full-time or close to full-time. But I have been keeping happiness and joy and bliss and fulfillment out of my reach, because I've created this barrier in my mind. The first few years, like 2020, 2021, it was okay, more or less, that I had these beliefs because I was working very hard on revising Aurora and Luna, line editing Aurora and Luna, and just finishing my first book. So I had this goal of finishing my first book and submitting it to agents and publishers and getting a book deal. I had this goal that was keeping me going. But then, of course, in the spring of 2022, when the book was more or less done, I submitted it and I got rejected. And most of the rejections were completely impersonal. They were auto responses. So there was very little feedback to actually work on. And I started to feel so lost. So lost. Now, something very good that happened at that point in time is I met my partner. We had this lovely romance, and that kind of took my mind off of the fact that I was being rejected by the literary agents and publishers, that is. But there was still this little seed of misery and melancholy that was kind of in my mind, and I was, not happy with what I was doing for a day job, which frankly was less to do with what it was I was actually doing, hairstyling, and more to do with where I was working at the time. Don't want to get into details about that, but there's many stories I could tell you. But, it was also the fact that I wasn't doing my passion full time. But more or less, for the rest of 2022, I was distracted by the fact that I was in a new relationship and This was a relationship unlike any relationship I had ever had before in so many ways, and I was just so happy with that part of my life. And it was easy to just focus on that and still write, yes, but the joy of the new relationship kind of distracted me from my pain of being rejected, for the most part anyway. But then in 2023, the honeymoon phase was kind of waning, and my dissatisfaction with what I was doing for work, even though I was in a new salon by this point, it was building and building. And it wasn't really to do with the salon anymore. It was just the fact that I felt stuck in my career. I felt stuck in my writing career, and I wasn't making any progress, and I felt really lost actually, because I knew in my heart that all I really truly wanted to write was the Sun and Moon Saga. I wanted to write the sequel to Aurora and Luna. I also knew that if Aurora and Luna got rejected by every literary agent and publisher that I sent it to, its sequel wasn't going to get accepted because it's literally a continuation of that story. You need the first book for the second book to make sense. So I felt very lost. And I was writing another book, completely unrelated to the Sun and Moon Saga, and I was enjoying it. I did enjoy writing that book, but I wasn't loving it in the same way, and writing was becoming more and more of a chore as the days went on. But I just kept telling myself, stick with it, write this book. This book might get accepted. If not this book, another book. And then once you're accepted, then maybe you can publish the Sun and Moon Saga. Really what I wanted to do is self-publish the Sun and Moon Saga, but honestly I was too afraid. I was terrified of putting my work out there, because when you self-publish, there's no gatekeeper, so you're essentially saying, my work is good, read it. And that feels a little bit like narcissistic in a way. But honestly, I do think it's good that us creatives feel proud of our work. I mean, obviously it's good to be humble, and it's good to always be working on your craft, but I also think it's important to be proud of our work. But at that time, I mean, I was proud of the work, but the fear of being criticized was greater than that feeling of pride. So I wasn't even really, like, sometimes I would consider self-publishing, but I never committed to it, so it just never happened. At the beginning of this year, I actually had a coaching call with someone that I have been watching on YouTube for years. It was a free coaching call. I saw it advertised on YouTube that he was going to be doing free coaching calls, and I had this problem of feeling stuck in my career still, and I had had that problem for like over a year now, well over a year. So I decided, hey, you know what? I've been watching this person's videos for a long time. I really like their perspective on things. I like the way they think about things. I'm gonna bring this problem to them in this free coaching call and see what they say. And they gave me that push that I needed to take the leap and publish my work. So this year, I have been publishing Aurora and Luna. I've been publishing it in installments, first with the Misfit Princess, and then with the Rebel Coven. And next year, the Near Impossible Quest will be coming out. The Near Impossible Quest is about twice the length of the Misfit Princess, so that's why it's taking longer to copy edit and proofread and format and all that, but it is coming out next year. I'm very excited about that. I'm currently doing the copy edits, and I'm having so much fun because I love being in new-camelot. I'll talk more about that. So that coaching call literally changed the trajectory of my life. I went from knowing what I wanted, but not really having a sense of direction, to just being so focused. And this year, 2024, I have been so focused. I have been writing. I drafted 3 novels this year. I've been publishing. I've been promoting my work. I've been just doing the thing. And it's been a year of doing. It's been a really busy year. And that's been good. I mean, for the most part, I've been super happy with that. But I did start to burn out quite badly. And I had like almost 2 weeks off from my day job at the end of August, beginning of September. And all summer, I looked forward to that time off. And when it came, I didn't really know how to enjoy it because I didn't know how to be still. I didn't really know how to be with my thoughts, especially as the weeks progressed. And I thought to myself, this is weird because this is literally what I want my life to be. I want to live a simple, quiet life and just write and read and practice spirituality. And that's what I'm doing right now. That's the opportunity I have right now with these 2 weeks off. And I don't even know how to fully enjoy it because I've just been so busy. During that time, I started spending more time with myself through meditation and journaling, which are habits that I've dabbled with throughout the years. But I realized during that time off that I needed more time with my thoughts, that I couldn't just be this productivity robot and run around frantically all day, that I had to learn how to sit with my thoughts, because not only is it healthy, but it's also where the creativity comes from. I didn't receive the idea for the Sun and Moon Saga by being busy and running around and being productive. That idea came to me because I had a moment of stillness, and because prior to that moment of stillness I had been learning a lot and opening up my mind and going down various rabbit holes that really intrigued me, and then taking a moment to be still. And that's when the idea came, and it was like an amalgamation of all those ideas that I had been studying: Arthurian literature, sociology, political science, psychology, like all those things I had been studying in school. It was during summer break after that the idea came. They all just kind of percolated, and this idea for a story came, and it didn't come because I was trying to come up with an idea for a story. It didn't come because I was trying to be productive. It came because I was resting and I was just being with my thoughts and letting myself process. And up until that break that I had taken at the end of summer, I hadn't really had any time to process. And I was just kind of going on autopilot, being productive, being a productivity robot. So I started practicing meditation and journaling, just a little bit of one or the other in the morning. And what this led to was the realization that I no longer want to write books that I'm not super enthusiastic about just because I think they're gonna do well. My camera died, so I had to charge up the battery, and while the camera was charging, I decided to start doing some drawing. Drawing is something that I am just getting into. I'm just getting my feet wet, really. I mean, I've drawn before, but I've never allowed myself to pursue visual art in the way I have writing or music, even though I really enjoy it and I really want to create visual art. But I've been going through a lot spiritually and emotionally lately, so I have allowed myself to start drawing again, and I'm not very good, but I'm enjoying slowly learning. I'm enjoying being a beginner. So I'm just drawing a scene from my first book. If you've read The Misfit Princess, then you will likely recognize this. This is Aurora sitting in secret glade and singing to her animal friends, to her familiars, and also the rebel warlock Zale is nearby. So I'm just in the middle of this drawing. I did another one that is from just moments before. Let me find it here. I posted this to social media, and this is Aurora making her nightly escape from the Greenlandian castle. Basically, at the end of 2023, I decided that I wanted to start making visual art just as a hobby. And I didn't even really know why. But through the year, this dream resurfaced, and the dream isn't so much like being an artist. Like, I don't necessarily want to run an art business where I'm selling my art, but the dream is that I want to illustrate my own work. I want to illustrate my writing. So this is another skill that I'm slowly developing, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I'm having a lot of fun bringing these scenes that I've imagined in my head to life. So where was I with my tangent? Oh yes, so yeah, I don't want to write books that I'm not like super passionate about anymore. This isn't to say that the books that I've drafted that are not books in the Sun and Moon Saga, it's not to say that I don't like those books or that I'm not somewhat passionate about them. Like, I would have to be passionate about them to some extent to have written them, but at the same time, I don't feel the same level of passion for those books as I do the Sun and Moon Saga. And I mean, all year I've been so busy. I've been so busy because I've been publishing the Sun and Moon Saga, I've been promoting the Sun and Moon Saga, I've been doing the edits. That's part of publishing, is doing the edits, and the edits take a lot of time because I'm very thorough and I really read everything very slowly and carefully. So I've been busy with that, and then I've also been busy drafting, because as I mentioned, I drafted 3 books this year, and I've been busy because for a while I was putting out a YouTube video a week, which is not a sustainable pace for me, at least not right now. So I won't be doing a video a week anymore. I'll just be doing videos when I want to do them, because I just think that's what YouTube should be for me. It should be an outlet to talk about my creative process, and it should be an outlet to share my work, but it shouldn't be like a job. I'm not trying to become a YouTuber, I'm an author. I'm an author sharing their work through YouTube. But I had it in my head that I had to put out a video every week, because otherwise no one will see my videos or something like that. Like, just some very like masculine idea. And so between writing my new projects and finishing and putting out Aurora and Luna and posting a weekly YouTube video and also working 4 days a week and also being a human, needing to cook, needing to shower, needing to exercise, having a relationship, having friendships, I've just been spread so thin. I've become so burnt out. And even though I have been more joyful this year than I was last year, like way more joyful, it hasn't necessarily, like, there was still something else that needed to change. I've been joyful because I've been putting out Aurora and Luna, but I've still been bottlenecking my happiness because I haven't been letting myself work on the Sun and Moon Saga beyond just finishing Aurora and Luna and getting it out. I've still been drafting other projects that I'm not as interested in. At the beginning of the year, my goal was to draft 3 books, and I did achieve that goal. But I wish I hadn't, in a weird way. I mean, I don't regret writing those books. I learned a lot through writing them, but I also wish that I hadn't stayed committed to that goal, because, as I said at the beginning of the year, I had a coaching call that completely changed the trajectory of my author career, because I was deciding to self-publish the work that I was the most proud of and the most passionate about. And I wish in that moment I had asked myself, okay, now that we're doing this thing that we didn't expect to do this year, do we still need to draft these other books, or do we need to start working on the next book in the Sun and Moon Saga, The Solar Queen? I wish I had had that honest conversation with myself back then, but at the same time, things go the way they need to go because they need to go that way. And I think I had to kind of burn myself out just to show myself that sometimes more isn't always better. See, at the end of 2023, I set the goal of wanting to draft 3 books in 2024 because 2023 had been a very creatively frustrating year for me, at least with writing. With music, things were going really well because I was songwriting. Me and my partner, we started a music project together and we wrote a bunch of songs that we're both really, really happy with. But with writing, I didn't draft a novel at all in 2023. I just revised and edited my second novel. And I just was kind of clocking in and clocking out. I wasn't really being as creative as I really wanted to be. I was still writing and I was still being productive, but I wasn't being creative in the way that I wanted to be. So in 2024, I wanted to be really creative, which is why I set the goal of drafting 3 books this year. But in hindsight, I wish I had made my goal to draft The Solar Queen or to write a bunch of short stories in New-Camelot. I wish I had made my goal something related to the Sun and Moon Saga, because that is what I'm choosing to focus on going forward, is pretty much only the Sun and Moon Saga. I mean, I don't want to say only because who knows, maybe I'll come up with an idea I like even better. But right now, that is the most exciting idea to me, is the Sun and Moon Saga. That world, those characters, their story, that's what I want to spend my time creating. And even once I decided to self-publish it, I still felt like I had to write those other books. And I guess the reason was self-doubt, scarcity, feeling like the Sun and Moon Saga wasn't enough, feeling like I wasn't enough. It was really just like an overcompensation. And my plan was to release 1 Sun and Moon Saga book and then release 1 non-Sun and Moon Saga book and just kind of rotate. Because with the Sun and Moon Saga, each book will be a sequel to the original book, whereas with those other books, they were all one-offs, so they could all attract new readers, whereas with the Sun and Moon Saga, to get readers into the sequels, I have to get them into Aurora and Luna. So, in a sense, it feels like it's going to be trickier to market, because with the other books, each book is almost like buying a new lottery ticket, because each book could attract new readers. I mean, I guess each sequel to Aurora and Luna could attract new readers just because I'll be promoting it online, and they might see that and wonder what it's about, and then they'll realize they have to read Aurora and Luna first, and then they'll go and read it. But you know what I mean. It's still going to require them to be into the premise of the Sun and Moon Saga and the premise of New-Camelot and the premise of Aurora and Luna. Whereas my other books, it was like a different premise for each one, so it felt like I was keeping my options open, or I don't know. Regardless, it came from a place of fear and scarcity and feeling like the Sun and Moon Saga wasn't enough, and not allowing myself to be truly proud of and passionate about my work. But as you can imagine, it didn't feel very good to be writing these other books that I wasn't as passionate about as the Sun and Moon Saga. Because, let's be honest, you want your second, third, and fourth, and fifth book to be something that you're more passionate about and that you're more proud of than your first book. But for me, for my first book to still be my favorite, something felt off. And basically, I was sitting in a meditation at the beginning of October, and it just hit me at 6 a.m. on the meditation cushion. It just hit me that I need to just work on the Sun and Moon Saga. all my other writing projects need to just go get tucked away into a folder on my computer, and I just need to focus on the Sun and Moon Saga, and I just need to write that and allow myself to dive really deep into that project. And I think that's important too, because one of the reasons why I was feeling so burnt out and feeling so frustrated is because writing the Sun and Moon Saga, it requires a lot of mental space from me. I can't really write it and do something else in my life that is really mentally taxing, because it is a rich world with lots of different races and cultures, and there's a history, and there's folklore and religion, and like there's so much going on in this world. And stepping away from it for a few years, because I stepped away from it for the bulk of 2022, all of 2023, and I'm just kind of getting back into it in 2024. It was hard to get back into it because there's a lot that I had to remember that I could remember bits and pieces of, but I started to forget. Like, it started to slip away as I started to worry more about adult life and also these other projects. And I just realized in that meditation that I don't need to be successful to write this project, and this project doesn't have to be successful for me to feel like it was worth my while. And I'm putting this in quotes because I mean success by like capitalism's definition of success. Like, this project doesn't need to be monetarily successful for it to be worth my while. I guess for many years I had been telling myself that I had to find success as an author before I could justify dedicating a huge chunk of my life to this project. But I see now that that's just, I mean, if anything, that's my own writer's block. That's my own resistance, going full circle to the beginning of the video. That's my own fear, like, coming up and getting in my way. It's almost like I didn't think it was worth it, or like I was worth it if I wasn't successful. It's really bizarre, and as I said, this probably sounds very nonsensical, but I really had it in my head that I needed to be monetarily successful to justify working on this project. And at the beginning of October, I realized that I didn't need to do that. And that came, again, through meditation, yes, but also through a coaching call with this same person. I've been seeing them all year, actually, and it's been really helpful because there's a lot of things from our culture that I have internalized and that I have allowed to control me and get in the way of my creativity and get in the way of my joy and of my bliss. And through coaching, I have unraveled that. And it feels so good. These last 6 weeks or however long it's been, I have been so much happier. I mean, I felt a lot of joy when I put out both of my books. But these last 6 weeks I've been so joyful. Not just because I accomplished something, but joyful on a moment-to-moment basis. Not all the time, obviously. I'm a human being, and a sensitive one at that, but I've just been a lot more joyful because I've been following my bliss. I've been working on the Sun and Moon Saga. I have been working on the copy edits for the Near Impossible Quest, which is the last installment in Aurora and Luna. And I started working on the Solar Queen a little bit, but then I decided that I wanted to wait to work on that project. And in the meantime, I've been writing short stories. One of them is a short story that will accompany my band's album, and that's not related to the Sun and Moon Saga. The other one is a short story set in New Camelot, and I'm hoping to put it out by Yule, because it is a good story for that time of year, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to make any promises because I really want to prioritize quality over quantity. I don't just want to put stuff out for the sake of putting stuff out, especially in a world where there's so much crap that goes out every day. And I'm not saying like everyone else's art is crap. I just mean there's a lot of content that goes out every day. And so I want to make things that are of quality. I want to make things that really come from my heart and soul. Basically, what I want to do, all I want to do is write the Sun and Moon Saga and build the world of New-Camelot. I want to write short stories set in that world. I want to create art set in that world. I want to create music set in that world. Basically, I want to build my fantasy world and write my fantasy story. And then I want to make music. I want to write music, I want to record music, and I want to perform. And those are my two passion projects, the Sun and Moon Saga and my band, Ghost of a Girl. And I don't know, everything else is kind of bullshit. All the other books I worked on, like, I like them, but I don't love them. So I'm kind of raising my standards for the projects that I work on, I guess. My new standard is that I have to be obsessed. Because these are two projects that I'm obsessed with, that I can't stop thinking about. I'll give you an example. All this year, I've been drafting these novels, and to do that, I would try to write for 2 hours a day, and I'd be like, oh, have I hit 2 hours yet? I mean, not all the time. I would get into a flow and I would enjoy it, but also there was more of this like clocking in, clocking out kind of vibe, whereas with the Sun and Moon Saga, like with the short story that I was drafting this morning, I wrote for 3 or 4 hours and the time just flew by. Like when I looked at the clock and I actually realized what time it was, I was shocked. And that's the kind of feeling that I want. I want to be in that creative flow where I'm just so passionate and so obsessed with what I'm making. I want to follow my bliss. And that's what I'm doing. So I've been in a really good place for the last 6 weeks. And I think this will be a big shift for me, which is why I'm talking about it in this vlog. But I had a very sobering realization the other day while I was doing my morning journaling. In my journaling, I started to map out how long I thought it would take to write, revise again, line edit, copy edit, proofread, and format the Solar Queen. Like, how long would it take me to get the Solar Queen out into the world from first draft to finished book? And then I realized that it's probably going to take me 3 years. Now, I could be wrong on that. Maybe it will take me less time, but I think it's going to take me 3 years. I think probably 6 months to a year for drafting, and then a year for revision, and then probably another 6 months for line editing, and then 6 months for copy editing. I think it'll probably take me 3 years. Whereas my second book, which I saw through to completion, I drafted it, I revised it, I line edited it, I copy edited it. Like, it's basically ready to go. Like, I could probably get it out within like a week or two if I really wanted to. Although I don't think I'm going to publish it. Maybe one day, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like me. I think it's like a decent book, but it doesn't feel like me. It doesn't come from the heart and soul the way that the Sun and Moon Saga does. But that book, it only took me 9 months to draft, revise, and edit it. I got the whole thing done in 9 months. Whereas a book in the Sun and Moon Saga will probably take me 3 years. Now, this is partially just because the books in the Sun and Moon Saga are longer. Aurora and Luna is about 176,000 words, I believe, which is more than 3 times as long as my second book, which was only about 50,000 words, I believe. So, you know, a longer project is just going to take longer. But also it's because it requires a lot more depth from me. I really have to dive deep into the Sun and Moon Saga work. I have to world build. I have to write backstories for my characters. I have to get to know my characters. They feel like real people to me, and it takes time to get to know them. I have to, like, there's so much that I have to do. To me, it's a living, breathing world, and the characters are real people, and I'm just telling their story. I described it to my boyfriend as though I feel like I'm a journalist that traveled to New Camelot and just made observations and just wrote everything down, and now I'm putting it into a book. That's how I feel when I work on this project. And it's a very cool feeling. I really like feeling like that when I'm working on something. I feel that way about the Sun and Moon Saga, and I feel that way about my band. But I don't feel that way about all my writing projects. And that's kind of my new standard for a creative project of mine, is I have to feel like, I don't know, I have to feel like it's almost coming from someplace outside of me and I'm just channeling it through me. This is getting very philosophical and spiritual. But yeah, the sobering realization was that if the books in the Sun and Moon Saga are each going to take roughly 3 years, I don't know exactly how many books there will be in the series, but I do have the whole story and backstory kind of roughly outlined. It will depend on how I organize the story, I suppose. But currently, I plan on 10 books in the main series and then 3 prequels. Although I do think the prequels are likely to be a bit shorter, but then again, I have no idea. My projects tend to surprise me while I'm working on them. There might be less books than that. I might be able to condense them a bit, but regardless, there's probably going to be about 10 books, maybe 13. And I'm 31 now. It takes me 3 years to write a book. I'll be like 60 years old by the time I'm done this series. So it's good that I'm getting started now. If I had had this realization before I had come to terms with the fact that I just want to write the Sun and Moon Saga, even if it's not monetarily successful, I probably would have had a mental breakdown. And I would have become like even more neurotic and even more of a workaholic, and I would have kept pushing even more. So I'm really glad that I had this realization about just how long this project is going to take after I had my realization about what I want to work on. I guess I've just gotten to this point where like I kind of don't care whether or not I'm successful. I mean, I do care. I do want to write full time. I do want the Sun and Moon Saga to find its readers. I do want to be able to support myself through this. And then I could probably write the books faster. So there's that. It might not take 30 years if I was writing full time. But when I did those calculations, I was doing it with the time that I currently have. So yeah, I do want to be successful. I'm not even gonna like try to bullshit you or me about that. Like I do still want to turn my writing into a business, but not at the cost of my passion, you know? And I don't want to be chasing my own tail. I don't want to be bottlenecking my own happiness. I just want to create the art that I really want to create, put it out into the world in a way that feels good to me, and then just trust that whatever happens is what was meant to happen. The universe, she's going to do her thing. It's out of my hands, and that's okay. It's scary and it's terrifying, but it's okay. Even if I did find success, money, and fame, I can't take that with me to my grave. I can't take that with me when I die. But I do hope that when I'm on my deathbed, that I have finished writing this series and that I feel really happy with the work that I did on this series. That's what's really important to me. I mean, writing full-time would make that easier. It would make it easier to do the work, you know what I mean? Like, because I would just have more time, I'd have more energy, I'd have more space. But like, I can still do the work, I can still make it happen. And that's what I'm doing. So those are my thoughts. I think that's everything. This was kind of a heavy video. This was kind of a spiritual and philosophical video. But I just wanted to share this because, yeah, I think it's easy. I mean, this, like, ramble that I just had at you, like, if it doesn't resonate with you, don't take it as gospel. This is not good business advice. Like, if you ask any indie author, they'll probably say publish multiple books a year. And I think that, you know, the idea of like writing a new book that's like a totally new concept, new characters, new story each time, like that does technically lend itself better to acquiring new readers. But this is just what my intuition is telling me to do, and my tarot card of the year is the High Priestess, so like I'm learning, this year I'm learning to listen to my intuition. Maybe this resonates with you. If so, please let me know in the comments below. But the way that I'm pursuing my writing career is definitely going against a lot of the standard indie writing business advice. And that's a little terrifying because it does feel like a bit of a gamble, but at the same time, my gut is saying go all in. This is what you're meant to do, regardless of whether it has success or not. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. I can just feel it. So I'm going all in. That's what I'm doing. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more videos like this. My plan for the channel going forward is to release the occasional writing vlog like this, but also I'm going to be releasing a lot of content that is directly to do with the Sun and Moon Saga. If you would like to purchase a copy of either the Misfit Princess or the Rebel Coven, the first 2 installments in Aurora and Luna, the links are in the description. Or if you would like to purchase both books, I am currently offering both the Misfit Princess and the Rebel Coven, which would normally total at about $42 Canadian. I'm currently offering them in a holiday bundle for just $25. So you'll save quite a bit of money if you purchase them in my holiday bundle, but to purchase them in my holiday bundle, you have to buy through me directly, not through Amazon. So if you want to buy my holiday bundle, please send me an email at contact@melodydanielluna.com. The link will also be in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy reading.